Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Senseis. I am your host, Sensei, of course. We got a popping show for you today, as we normally do. We're talking about the conference finals, Western Conference, Eastern Conference. We're also talking about the games prior to that. All the madness that happened, the game sevens, we got to get into it. We got to talk about Phoenix's epic collapse, Chris Paul. We don't even know what happened to Chris Paul. And we got to talk about Luka. We got to talk about Giannis. We have to talk about Jason Tatum. So many things, so many great topics, so many opportunities for us to give you the sports news that you love from the people that you love, us, of course. So again, I'm your girl Sensei, and let me bring my girl in, Ruth, the mother truth.
Hey, what's up, Sports Sensei family? Shout out to the ASAP Network. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to do what we do best, and that is talking sports. Sensei, I missed you last week. I apologize, but I was in the campo. I was in the campo of San Pedro in Dominican Republic in my mom's home city, and Wi-Fi is non-existent over there. So now that I'm at the resort, as you guys can see the palm trees and everything behind me, and this super crazy tan I got going on. It's intense. I just left the pool about 30 minutes ago, but I am so ready to break down some NBA talk because you already know your girl was locked in throughout this whole entire trip.
I already know, sis, because we were definitely communicating, so I know how you were feeling. And like I said, Ruth is coming to us bringing real tropical vibes. You know, we at the Sports Senseis, we like to travel and give you the real tropical vibe. So,
and one quick thing I want to say to the audience is today is my Pitbull 7th birthday. Shout out to Zeus that just turned 7 years old today. I've had this dog since he was 6 years old, and I'm so happy that he completed his service dog training and he traveled all around the world with me. And he's here to celebrate his own birthday while I'm on this family reunion vacation. So shout out to Zeus. Shout out to Zeus for being such a great dog and all these travels. All right, that was your camera time. Mommy loves you. Go play. So yeah, let's get to it.
Let's get to it. So without further ado, Ruth and Truth, we have to start off with the steaming hot topic that everybody's discussing. Everybody's talking about it. I know you have a lot of feelings about it. So let's go. Without further ado, let's get into it. What happened to the Phoenix freaking Suns? Because they were up 2-0. Everything looked like it was going to be a wash, like they were going to beat either sweep Dallas or 4-2 Dallas. Nobody saw Dallas forcing the game 7. And then even when they forced the game 7, everybody was like, of course, it's Phoenix. They're the best. They've been the best team all year. That's a wash. It's going to be a blowout. Well, it was a blowout, but it wasn't the blowout that we expected. It wasn't the blowout we expected. It was for surely a blowout, but it wasn't the one that we expected. So what are your thoughts?
Wow,
what? Please.
Where do you even start? Because when you think of the Phoenix Suns, you think about how dominant they've been in the NBA season throughout the whole entire season, start to finish, only losing 18 games, and rarely did they ever lose at home. But that's exactly what we saw unfold in Game 7 against the Dallas Mavericks. Because Luka Doncic said, you guys could talk all you want when you guys are up. Well, then when it comes that time for us to put in the work, it's going to go down. And we completely saw a collapse in Phoenix in their home stadium again with those fans that were anticipating their chance to go back to an NBA Finals after losing to the Milwaukee Bucks in the previous season.
They got booed. So, they were getting booed.
And what did we talk about that earlier in our Sports Senseis, in our earlier episodes when we were talking about the Lakers and their booing at home when their own fans were becoming almost enemies at that point. So, but I understand where the disappointment comes from because when you're paying a couple $1,000s to sit courtside and your team only scores 10 points in the second quarter, and when you get to halftime, you got 27 points, and Luka has 27 points. That's a little bit of a head scratcher to the team, the fans that have been supporting this team throughout all those runs where they had no playoff experience. Where they've been through the mud. So I completely understand where those fans come from when it comes to booing the team because it's just disappointment mixed with alcohol. Alcohol and disappointment is not a good mix for sports fans. So. Man, was I surprised? Surprise is like a whole nother let's just start from me sitting at dinner with my family at this resort, having a great dinner, and I have my phone out, and my mom's looking at me like, really? Like,
I get
you
that look
couldn't
so.
you couldn't step away from it for like one
Like you
hour
can't.
for us to have a
They don't
family
understand.
dinner, and
They don't
I was like,
understand. It's an
Mom,
addiction.
Mommy, I love you. This is game 7 though. Like we're talking about a game 7. But
The
then
two
as
best
she
words
heard
in
me
sports.
discuss exactly, as she heard me discuss the game with my family members at the dinner table, she was like, why are you even watching it then? Like you sound so disappointed, you sound so discouraged about what you're watching right now. So can you take out your headphones and like communicate with the family right now? And I was like, Mom, you're right. So I took out one headphone. I took out one headphone and I put it back in its case. And I was like, I'm half here, you know, because
Yeah,
I'm still.
50-50. You
It's
gotta be
game 7.
50-50.
You got to
So
find that balance. I was finding that balance.
for sure. So I have a question for you before I give my opinion here. So what does this, because the conversation at least that I've been kind of hearing so far, as far as like with different sports radio shows and like networks and things of that nature, because I'm like you, I'm a fiend. Like I'm, as I was cooking yesterday, I was literally listening to like Undisputed and like First Take and like all that stuff. So like I get it. We here. So what is this? What does this say? What does this series say about Chris Paul and his career and his totality? Because there's been a lot of conversation about Chris Paul and the fact that he hasn't won any game sevens, the fact that he flamed out again in the playoffs by not playing well, the fact that this is his like third or fourth or I think fifth time or something being up 2-0, blowing a series. Like, what does this say about him? We'll get into. I don't know if you saw Patrick Beverly's comments, but we'll get into his comments a little bit after you say what you have to say. But
Yeah.
what do you think? Like, what does this say for you as far as legacy wise when you look back
I
on
was
Chris Paul?
very I was very discouraged with CP3. Now, I've been a fan of Chris Paul since he was with the LA Clippers,
Mm-hmm.
and I was really hoping that this year was going to be different. They had the best, they had the best record in the regular season. Chris Paul wasn't playing to his full potential, and there was a lot of injury talk that he was leaning on for that. But when it came to this playoff series and you're down 40 points during a game 7 at home, that's that's unexcusable at that point. When you're turning the ball over in the manner that he was, we're having 7 turnovers in the first quarter in the earlier games in this series. It kind of you just kind of look at him like, do you have the longevity at this point of your career to be able to extend your physicality throughout a playoff series to get to a game 7? Because at the end of the day, the regular season record looks fine and dandy, but we all talk about the playoffs. We all talk about championship level. And when you're performing like that in a game 7, and we're not even talking about just game 7, he had a poor performance throughout this whole entire series. If you guys look at the numbers, if you guys look at the stats, he said it himself. He was not pleased with how his accountability during these games. So with CP3, I've always been a fan. He got that dog mentality. He has that, I'll put the team on my back. When you guys look at the numbers, when he joined the Clippers, they expanded. When he
Mm-hmm.
joined the Pelicans, they became a playoff team. When he joined the Phoenix, who didn't even have playoff experience, and that's with Devin Booker. Remember,
Mm-hmm.
with Devin Booker, they still did not make it to playoffs. Then you have
Mm-hmm.
CP3 join the roster, and they went all the way to the NBA Finals. So as much as I love Chris Paul, it's a little bit questionable. But when it comes to Patrick Beverly's comments, he went too far.
I agree. So here's what I'll say about the series in its totality. I was very disappointed in the Phoenix Suns because I actually had them going back to the finals. I had them actually winning the finals. Um, because I was just like, this is gonna be their redemption year. They're gonna be motivated. Chris Paul was so close, and he's gonna want that taste again. And Devin Booker's gonna ascend. I was wrong about all of those things because Chris Paul, at the end of the day, he's an incredible point guard. I'll never take that away from him. But he's not enough to get you over the hump. And to have somebody like a talent so great as in a Devin Booker, like, and have him like Devin Booker failed Chris Paul because he was supposed to be a lot better in this series than what he was. And he did a lot of talking for a guy that. This is probably the only part of Patrick Beverley saying what he said that I agree with, is that he does a lot of talking for a guy that really ain't accomplished much. Like let's not forget, before CP3 got there, the Phoenix Suns weren't winning 64 games. They weren't going to the play deep in the playoffs. They didn't have an opportunity to make the finals until Chris Paul got there. Now, that's not to say Devin Booker's not great, because he's still great, but it's like humble yourself like a little bit. Like you're not where you think you are. And I think this series probably taught him that, because Luka is exactly who we think Luka is, and exactly who he thinks he is. Like what he said, the confidence and the swag that he plays with, he's exactly that. He's proven nothing other than that. So, as far as like Chris Paul, like I said, he's still a great point guard to me, but it's definitely something to look at for the simple fact that he's had so many 2-0 leads and blown them. He's never won a game 7. Like he's never been a deciding factor. And as a point guard, that's kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of your job a little bit. So, you know what I mean? It's just really, it was really disappointing, and I hated to see it for him, because I feel like this year was his last real chance to win a championship, because he's going to get a year older next year. He's going to be 38. He's 37 now. He's going to be 38 next year. These young guns is getting, I mean, you know, Memphis is young as hell. Like they're going to be around. You got to consider Denver's going to be back around, because Jamal Murray will be back by that time. Golden State is still Golden State. Luka is only going to get better, because he's only 23, so he's only going to get better.
That's crazy to even think about.
Right. So it's like, I mean, he hasn't even really fully unlocked his full potential yet, and that's scary, because he's really good right now. But he not even like he hasn't even sniffed the surface of what he could potentially be if he stays healthy, barring injury.
Yeah.
So I feel like this year was their last real opportunity to win a championship, and I think he feels the same way, because you can kind of see it in his face as the game was dwindling down.
Yeah.
But
Sensei, when we speak about that specific conversation about will it be CP3's last year, we kind of said the last thing. Well, I don't know about you, but there was a lot of conversation of it being Phoenix Suns last year having the chance to win the NBA Finals when they faced the Milwaukee Bucks last season with Chris Paul. They were able to win 60-plus games, but only losing 18 games, and made it right back into the playoffs, had the number 1 seed in the West, as well as the number 1 seed throughout the whole NBA with winning the most games. So as much as we try to kind of tack on like Chris Paul, you're getting old, like we understand, you got to look at his supporting cast. You got to look at the roster that he has around him with Aiden around him, with Devin Booker around him, with Mikal Bridges, who was very close to being the defensive player of the year. As long as we surround him with that talent, they could always have a chance to compete in the West, because as we see, the Lakers are getting older. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of teams. The Denver Nuggets leaned a lot on Jokic, but they weren't being able to be successful, even with him winning the MVP of the league. So as much as I want to doubt Chris Paul, I've seen it from the past that we can't continue to doubt this man, because him and Monty Williams and supporting cast will find a way to get it done. And congratulations to the Phoenix Suns for having the best season, or the best regular season record, but losing in the second round to the Dallas Mavericks was a huge disappointment. But I will not doubt that Chris Paul could possibly be in the same situation or even further with the seasons coming on.
I agree, but I disagree, because at the same time we have to look at it like this, because I think actually somebody in the comments said it. What if DeAndre Ayton doesn't come back? Because there's a possibility that he might not come back for, you know, how the season ended. He didn't really get a lot of minutes in that game 7 for whatever wasn't like whatever internal issue him and the coach had, and he's looking for max money, which I don't think Phoenix is willing to give him. So then you have that factor, you know, factoring in. So what if they, you know what I'm saying, what if they don't have Ayton? And then the book on how to beat Chris Paul is out now. Like Dallas has kind of put that formula out on display for this series, because they did the same thing over the course of 4 games and it won them the series. So now the jury is going to be to attack him on defense, wear him down, and make him go left, and make sure that he doesn't have any opportunity to get to that spot up mid range. If you can do those three things, he's pretty much out the game. He's neutralized. He's out the game at that point.
So
And then it's all,
would it be
go ahead.
fair to say that the Phoenix fell short offensively and obviously defensively with allowing Luka to score 27 points in the first half, or we could attest to Jason Kidd, his ability to rotate his players the way that they did with the depth that they have to be able to tire out the Phoenix Suns, because after the first quarter, while I'm watching this game, it almost seems like they were trying to play one-on-one ball. And
Mm-hmm.
when the Dallas Mavericks, you can't play that with the
Mm-mm.
defensive monsters that they have on that team. So
Mm-hmm.
could we attest the success for Dallas to be them playing great ball, or were the Phoenix Suns just not into it? Because I saw some of the sloppiest plays and turnovers
Yeah, yeah.
that I've ever seen in the NBA. I mean, close to the Golden State Warriors and their series against the Grizzlies. I'm glad that they were able to figure that out, because some of those games were real ugly.
Yeah, I think you have to attest it to Dallas, the adjustments that Dallas made. Like you said, you got to give Jason Kidd a lot of credit. He made some really good adjustments um, after those first two games to pretty much make it a series. And once they made it a series, I feel like they felt like they were going to win. They was just kind of like, well, we're down 0-2, so we have to push a 7 in order for us to win. So, or you know what I'm saying? So, or they could afford to do that, I guess. Um, but yeah, so once they made those adjustments and they got those two games back, I feel like they felt they were confident and felt like they could win at that point because, like I said, they had made the proper adjustments. They had figured out a formula that works. And I'm gonna tell you something. Like I know everybody's like, "Oh, the Warriors are gonna listen." If they turn the ball over against the Mavericks the way that they turn over against the Grizzlies, they will lose that series because the
Yeah.
the the difference between the Mavs and the Grizzlies is that honestly, if they would have had Ja for those last couple of games, I feel like Memphis would have won that series because the
Yeah.
Warriors didn't play. They didn't have a good game into that series until Game 6, and that was only because of Klay Thompson. Game 6, Klay,
Yep.
of course. Like,
Scoring
but they
30
didn't.
points.
I mean, but that's what he do. But I mean, that was their only like really. That was the only game that they strung together. But even that game was still winnable. Like it wasn't
Yep.
a blowout. It wasn't like what I'm saying. They stepped on the Grizzlies from the beginning and just coasted it out throughout. Like they still had their scratch and claws for that win. You ain't gonna be able to do that against this Mavericks team because they got a bench. They got shooters. They got a really good coach who understands time management. He understands play like possession and like how to scheme for certain things. Like he's a coach. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not playing against any newbie, so they gonna have to. We'll get to that, but yeah, I
So,
think I definitely
but wait. Let's before we close out the conversation of the Phoenix
yeah
Suns, I
yeah
want to bring up what we heard on ESPN and obviously what went viral and what I shared on my Instagram earlier today about Pat Beverly's conversation of not being scared of the Phoenix Suns. He literally said, "People are
that they
scared of
wanted
Luca.
them. Yeah.
People are scared of Luca, but
Hmm.
nobody in the locker rooms throughout the whole NBA has ever been scared of Phoenix." Now, he went on to talk about Chris Paul and
Hmm.
about his lackluster ability to take his team to the final, this,
Hmm.
that, and the third. Do you really think that Pat Beverly had any, what would you say, had any consistency with that conversation about Chris
Hmm.
Paul not being the elite player that he does? Because if you ask me, that's a Hall of Flamer if you want, with Chris Paul, with CP3.
Hmm.
The way he's been able to change a roster and bring them up from a non-playoff contending team to bringing them to the Western Conference Finals, to bringing them to an NBA Finals, you have to give the man props from what he's been able to do at the size that he plays. He's one of the most elite point guards in the league, in my perspective, in his 17th year, still in that conversation. So, how do you depict the conversation with Pat Beverly on? I believe it was First Take.
Yeah, it was First Take. So a few things. Pat Beverly is a hater for one. Like that's just let's just call it what it is. I'm just gonna be. as honest as I can possibly be. He's a
We
hater.
keep it a buck on here.
We keep it all. We gonna keep it all the way a buck. He's a hater. But even the saying always goes is there's what is this? I'm trying to think of what the saying is. Hold on, it's in a J. Cole song. Give me a second.
Oh, I love J. Cole. Like I could start riddling off some lyrics right now, but I will as you.
Okay, so he says, I got it. So basically, he cusses in it, so I won't say the actual. But he pretty much was talking about a certain situation, and he just said, "All good jokes contain good, you know what." So, but and that's kind of the same thing with Patrick Beverley. Like, even though like he's a hater or whatever, but there was some truth in some of the things that he was saying. I think Chris Paul is a Hall of Famer still. I don't think that he's as bad as Patrick Beverley tried to make him seem. I think that that's a personal beef that they have. But I do believe him when he says that nobody feared Phoenix. I do believe him when he said that, you know, that they are a team that nobody takes serious in the locker rooms around the year. I do believe that because Chris Paul does have a reputation of rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. So that's why he's not necessarily lying. He just kind of putting 20 on 10, but that's what he does. That's just Patrick Beverley. That's what he does. He's just an extra guy. Like that's just a part of his whole shtick. Yeah. But like I said, I definitely think Chris Paul is a Hall of Famer. I definitely think he's one of the best point guards, you know, that the league has ever seen. However, I do think that there is truth to the fact that nobody feared the Phoenix Suns and nobody was really scared of them. And I feel like a lot of people maybe around the league felt like the Phoenix Suns were kind of premature in how kind of they carried themselves, like how they acted. You know, that super cocky, like, we're just better than everybody. Like, I don't think everybody bought into that. So I definitely think that there's some truth to that part of it. But to act as if like Chris Paul is like a scrub or he's just some bum off the street, like, come on, man. Like, let's not do that. Like, I mean, like even JJ Redick was like, bro, come on. Like,
JJ Redick as well as Barnes.
I love JJ Redick.
Me too.
I love JJ Redick.
He was with Orlando Magic for, you know, a longevity of his career. So, of course, I have some type of love towards JJ Redick, and his ability to shoot beyond the arc has been absolutely phenomenal throughout his NBA career. Sure. But I will say this, Patrick Beverley, you need to sit down, my friend. You are a role player, as Barnes had talked about throughout his segment, where he took some time to call out Patrick Beverley because he said there's a separation between media and how reporters talk about these players and then somebody just being straight disrespectful. Now, I know that Chris Paul might have not been a favorite in the locker room. He is a tough leader. With him going to the Phoenix Suns at the point of his career, at the point of his life, I think he's realized that he needs to stop rubbing people the wrong way, that the only way that he's going to get what he wants out of his teammates is to talk to them with respect and not bring such a rah-rah type of attitude, because when it comes to somebody new coming into the locker room, because you got to understand that he's been on 5 different rosters. When he comes into a new locker room, you can't just simply discourage your teammates by telling them what to do. You got to kind of sympathize with them. And I feel like CP3, Chris Paul, has really understood that going to a young roster with the Phoenix Suns under Monty Williams, which is still a pretty new head coach in the league. So I think that's kind of what attested to their success as Chris Paul came into as his veteran years to help these young players form into their own. Now, with Patrick Beverley's comments, you need to sit down, my friend. You were a Clipper for a very long time. I was very upset that the Clippers traded you off to the Timberwolves. But at this point, I do not agree with the statements that you had on First Take. I think that maybe he was just trying to, what can I say, when people try to stir the pot, I mean,
that's pretty much it. That's it.
I really think Pat, and everybody has seen it throughout his career, that he does this all day long. So I don't think that people should take it too serious, the comments that he made. Everybody, I mean, if you watch basketball in the last decade and a half, as Chris Paul is entering into his 18th season, if he comes back next year, which he says he was, because let me tell you, there was a lot of reporters that were trying to get that out of him. Like, is this your last year? Are you going to be retiring after this? And he was able to shut down those comments as soon as they came to him. So I do believe that Chris Paul is going to come for another season with the Phoenix Suns, as they just given him a max contract to be with them till the end of his career. But I do not agree with Pat Beverly's comments. I think he was over the line. I think that he was disrespectful, and that's why I reposted the video that Barnes had posted or had said on his segment on ESPN. And I mean, I just, at the end of the day, that's just adding fuel to the fire. So continue to talk.
Keep it competitive. Keep it competitive.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't mind. Honestly, I don't mind it. I like it. That's a part of sports. Like, as long as it doesn't cross the line of, like, you know, talking about families and stuff like that, then that's when I feel like it gets kind of crazy. But
yeah, so I mean, did you ever see the video of Chris Paul's family being antagonisted at the Dallas Mavericks stadium? Because I've been looking for this video of where they were pushed or where their hands or the hands of the Dallas Mavericks fans was placed on his family to cause all that hubbub. I was yet to see that video. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but that was just a more of a segue to take away from what you know, what he had to do on paper when it came against the Dallas Mavericks.
I haven't seen it either. I haven't really looked for it, I'll be honest, but I haven't seen it either. But I know that something definitely had to happen, because he wouldn't, like, the way that he reacted once the camera was on him, that you don't get that reaction just from a misunderstanding or somebody trying to hug. Like it was something that crossed the line. Because when you say, again, I've spoken about this before, I'm not a violent person. However, when there's certain lines that are crossed, you get a different reaction. And so when somebody says, "I'm gonna see you after," something had to happen to provoke that. Like, it had to be serious enough to where he had to be told on the bench, where he knew that this is the person that is in violation of doing whatever my family member or family members said happened. So I want to see you directly. When, like I said, and words mean things, and when you say something like that, that means something set that off. There was a trigger that says, I need to see you after this. I have something to handle, basically. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I don't know. Like, that whole situation is kind of crazy. But
shout out to everybody in the comments. We appreciate you guys staying intact on the ASAP networks, on the Sports Senseis, live every Tuesday at 6 p.m., 5 p.m. Central Time. This is Root the Truth and Sensei live on the ASAP network. Now, we just discussed the Suns and them falling apart. Basically, we all saw them completely peel apart against the Dallas Mavericks. We're gonna move on, because we can't continue to beat down the Suns, because we really can, but we won't. We can't. We'll bore you guys. We're sorry. So let's go to the next team in the Western Conference.
Yes.
We got the Golden State Warriors that defeated the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, you touched on that with Ja Morant being injured with that right knee injury, the bruise injury that he had, that he was not able to show up for Game 5 and Game 6. Sensei, do you think it would have been a completely different narrative when it came to a Game 6 appearance in Golden State with Ja Morant being out?
I think so, because and here's why. Because, like I said prior to this topic, is that even though Klay went off, like, he went off, but it still was a winnable game for Memphis. And I feel like if they have a difference maker like Ja is, because Ja is, let's be honest, he is a difference maker, they could have probably won that game. Honestly, I really think that they could have probably won that game, forced it to a Game 7. And then things would have got real interesting, because Game 7 would have been in Memphis. Like, there's a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I mean, you got to give Golden State credit. Golden State did what Golden State always does. Draymond played a heck of a game. Klay played. I mean, Klay. I was so happy for Klay, and I'm not even a Golden State fan, but I was really happy for Klay, because
would it be fair to say that the old Klay is back?
No, I'm not gonna go that far, because and the reason why is because we haven't seen that Klay up until that moment. Like
consistently. You're right.
yeah, like you know what I'm saying. Like he's had games where it's like, ooh, is there a drop off? Is he not the same guy? Like I mean, there's been a couple of games that I've looked at him literally and been like, ooh, I don't know. Like it's you know what I'm saying that injury affects him more than we thought. But then he had a moment like Game 6, but I need to see that more on a consistent basis before I say Clay is quote unquote back. And he's also had the help of like Jordan Poole playing so great, so he hasn't really had to be the Klay Thompson of old, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, hats off to Golden State. Definitely got to give them credit. But I definitely think it would have been different if Ja would have been able to play, because like it was teetering for a minute before like Klay just erupted and then
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and then he just, what I'm saying, he took off and obviously he closed the game. But if they would have had, somebody like Ja that could have combated that, it may have been different.
Yeah, and not only combated that, but being able to capitalize on the turnovers that we witnessed from the Golden State Warriors, having 14 turnovers in the first half in Game 5, where they were literally down by almost 55 by the third quarter. Now, that is one of the games that I almost could not believe that Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala obviously being out with injury, but like I almost could not believe that it was the same exact dynasty roster that we've been speaking about in the last 6-7 years. We're up against the Memphis Grizzlies playing as poorly as they did. Now, if Golden State try to bring that same mentality that we saw in Game 5 and even in Game 6, team? Because that was a really we gotta admit it. It was a really, really sloppy first half for the Golden State Warriors that were turning the ball, throwing half-court passes, Jordan Poole not taking care of the ball, Steph Curry not taking care. And it wasn't only just one player. It was consistent from all of the starters that we saw them 2 or 3 turnovers in the first half. Now, if you bring that type of mentality against the Dallas Mavericks, Jason Kidd with Luka Doncic as supporting class will be able to put that away. So the Golden State Warriors definitely has some drawing board action to going on. I know Steve Kerr, the head coach, was out with after being testing positive for COVID. Now I hope that he has been able to rejuvenate and come back to himself, and we'll be able to see him on the sidelines for the Warriors. But it didn't look bad for Brown, who was the assistant coach that was head coach for those 2 games, for them to play as poorly as they did. Now, if Klay Thompson wouldn't have erupted, as we spoke of, in that Game 6, I think it would have been a totally different conversation.
For sure, absolutely. And like I said, they cannot turn the ball over the way that they turned the ball over against the Grizzlies, against the Mavericks, because one thing, like Memphis wasn't really able to capitalize a lot of the times on these turnovers because they're such a young team still. They're still trying to figure it out, and they have a lot of guys that can play make, but they don't have like a lot of just pure shooters. Dallas has pure shooters. Like that's what they do. Bullock, Hardaway Jr., Hardaway the third, I think. I know he was out for a majority of their last series, so I don't know if they're going to get him back for this series. But if they get him back, they got him, and of course you got Luka, and they are not scared of anybody. They are not scared of a single soul. They're going to be just as tough, if not tougher, than Memphis. And like I said, what the advantage that they have over Memphis is the fact that they have guys that can shoot the basketball, that guys that can score the basketball. Like, and on top of the fact that Luke is an insane passer, on top of being a great scorer, like he's an insane passer. So they got to come with it. They got to come with it. They can't have the same mentality against Memphis, because if they have 14 turnovers against Dallas, it's gonna be scary hours for Golden State.
And with let's talk about Spencer Dinwiddie.
What?
Scoring 30 points.
I know Brooklyn is kicking themselves
30 points in the butt. Let me tell you, scoring 30 points off the bench to help the Dallas Mavericks overcome the Phoenix Suns. Outstanding performance by Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, I will say that I thought for a second it might have been a mistake to trade away Kristaps Porzingis to the Washington Wizards to obtain Spencer Dinwiddie but the way that he played in the playoffs, once he became accustomed to Jason Kidd and their offense, absolutely outstanding. I give him all the flowers. It was amazing to watch. It was amazing to see them unfold, and I hope that he becomes a starter for the Dallas Mavericks in the
Yeah,
upcoming
same,
season.
same. I agree. I think he should be because he's been playing lights out. But I mean, that might actually work better for them to have him come off the bench. Like that might be one of those things where it's better that he's better
Yep.
just fit coming in and like picking up the load a little bit or just giving them a little bit of a spark off the bench because you that's definitely important to have a six man that can bring that fire off of the bench, and he's definitely that guy. But like I said, I know Brooklyn is kicking themselves right now because of imagine if they would have had a Spencer Dinwiddie against Boston, now they probably still would have got beat, but it would have been way different than getting swept. So I mean, I'm just saying. But yeah, he's been playing great for them. Jalen Brunson has been playing great for Dallas as well. So you got to give him a lot of credit. I mean, they're clicking at the right. It's a saying.
At the perfect time.
You click at the right time, and they are the epitome of that right now. They are clicking at the most perfect time right now. And yeah, man, they're gonna be a good team for some years if they can keep that nucleus together around Luka.
Hmm.
And probably get like a couple more pieces kind of to complement them a little bit. They're gonna be tough, man. They're gonna
Now,
be tough. And
I saw a comment on Twitter really quick that made me laugh about how uh, from the Real Deal podcast, he made a comment about how he thinks that the way that Luca plays and his style of his slow motion about being
hmm
able to dominate the paint, do a lot
right.
of spins, get to the basket should be
hmm
tested as a scientific experiment because we watch how
Seriously, see, I've
slow
never,
motion, and he's scoring
what
45 points a game. Like, it's intense.
I've never seen it. Most of the guys that I'm a fan of that score in high volumes like that, like a Bron, like a Allen Iverson, like a Steph, even like Katie, like they're all so like that's a part of their game. They're also quick. They're also agile. Like all the moves that they make seem like it just happens like that, and they just make something happen.
Hmm.
Luca literally plays on he literally plays on slow motion. Like he literally plays on like level two, and
Slow
it's like
motion.
how do you still be that effective? Like how are they not stopping it? Like, cause it
Mm.
looks so on camera, so I know in person it's probably 10 times slower, but he's still. But the thing I think what helps Luca though, because and this is crazy to say this, I don't want to jump the gun, but I know a lot of people were comparing him to Dirk because Dirk's game was like that too. Dirk wasn't super fast either. He wasn't super athletic,
He
but
was
he was
way too tall to
effective.
be that fast.
He was effective. Like he wasn't
Hmm.
he was tall, but he wasn't super quick. Like he didn't have out of this world athleticism. He wasn't like you know what I'm saying? Like, but he was effective. He was tall, he was strong, he could shoot, and he knew how to get to his spots and he knew how to, take advantage of those situations. So Luka's kind of falling on that same path. Like he's like I said, he's not super fast, he's not super tall, he's not athletic, he's not jumping up the gym, but he's effective. He's strong, he can get to his spot, he's confident, he can knock down shots, he can create shots, he can pass the ball. So he's just perfected the things that he does well.
And
And
one
I
of the
mean,
most important things about his game is that his head coach and Jason Kidd is locked in. So what he has to
mhm,
say on the sideline
mhm,
and
mhm,
what he's performing on the court, Jason Kidd has definitely bought into his mentality, and he
absolutely.
knows that Luka is going to be the future of the Dallas Mavericks. So it's time to to continue to put those right pieces around him and to
Mhm,
support him. And when he says, "Coach, that wasn't a foul. You need to call a challenge," Jason Kidd's
mhm.
like, "I didn't even see it, but I'm gonna just call it anyways because I believe you." And guess what? They ended up winning most of those challenges that they had in the postseason. So I think Dallas is going to be a huge threat for the Golden State Warriors. But Sensei, let's wrap up the Western Conference Finals. You
Yes,
tell
indeed.
me, give me your predictions on the Golden State Warriors facing Luka Doncic, Jalen Bronson, Jason Kidd in the Western Conference Finals. Now, I don't think
Ooh.
that we've had Dallas in the conversation of Western Conference
No,
Finals
we
in
have
quite
not.
some time.
We have
So
not.
at this point, what you've seen throughout this playoffs and within this postseason, how they've been able to take down an entity like the Phoenix Suns in such a dramatic manner. How do you see that playing out in the Western Conference Finals? Is it going to a Game 7, or are the comments having a little bit legitimacy with what they're saying and Warriors in 6?
I think Dallas can push it 7. I think because of a few things. Because, like I said, the Golden State Warriors are really careless with the basketball, and they haven't had. Unfortunately, they haven't played against a team that can capitalize on a lot of their carelessness.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dallas could be that team to do that. Then you also account what kind of Klay Thompson are we getting? Are we getting this Game 6 Klay Thompson throughout the series, or are we getting the Klay Thompson that kind of just still coasting and trying to figure it out? Because a big advantage for Dallas is that Klay Thompson is not the defender that he used to be. So you know what I'm saying? So I think shout out Coach. What's up, Vic? I see you, my boy. But yeah, I definitely think Dallas has an opportunity to push it 7.
Yeah. Okay, but pushing it to 7, as in like they'll make it to 7, and maybe the entity of the Golden State Warriors are going to take over.
I mean, because I can't even really predict who I think is going to win right now. Like, I kind of have to just see how, because I feel like
we got to watch 1 or 2 games. Yeah,
like I feel like on paper they match up well, but then like you still got to see that in person. So I think after like game 1 or 2, I could probably give you a more fair assessment of who is going to win the series. But as of right now, from what I've seen from both teams, I think Dallas could push it to 7 games. But what do you think?
When it comes to a physicality matchup between these two teams, I think they are spot on with one another. I think they have a lot, like you said, they have a lot of sharpshooters on Dallas, just like they have a lot of sharpshooters on the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors had a little bit of an issue when it came to guarding the perimeter, and that's going to be a problem going up against the Dallas Mavericks, who needs a lot of perimeter defense to be successful to shut down the shots beyond the arc. So I think it's going to be a big issue for the Golden State Warriors. I have it going to a game 7, but I think with the physicality that the Golden State Warriors have brought to the table, and with the coaching experience that they have with Steve Kerr, as long as he can be healthy and be on the sidelines for his Golden State Warriors team, I think they could take it away in the game 7. But it will be a very physical. It will be a lot of offense. It'll be a high-scoring game for both teams, a lot of three-point opportunities. But I think the Golden State Warriors are, at the end of the day, in a game 7, I think they're going to take the wrap.
Well, that's true. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Golden State definitely definitely have the the experience, and as far as game 7s go, but they also have been known to lose game 7s as well, even in their home arena.
She won't let that go. She won't let that go, guys. She's talking about LeBron James.
I'm never letting it go. I'm never letting it go. I just want everybody to know this never going to.
That's the only time that she can bring up her team, is when they talk about the unsuccessful matter of how the Golden State Warriors have just dissipated in past game 7 games. We'll give that to you, Alana. Like, we've seen
have to, because I'm never letting it go. If I ever have to talk about the Warriors, I'm always going to bring that up. All Warrior fans, I need y'all to know this. I'm never letting it go. I don't care that y'all got the 2 out of 3. That doesn't matter to me. Y'all didn't get the one that you were supposed to get. The one that you were 73-9 and you had the best record ever. You didn't get that, and you blew a 3-1 lead. I'm not letting it go. But we're off with the Western Conference now. Let's jump straight over to the Eastern Conference. Let's talk about, before we get into like the Eastern Conference final matchup, which is tonight, the Bucks, of course, against Miami. Not the Bucks against Miami. I'm sorry, the Celtics against Miami. I was talking about the Bucks, but the Celtics against Miami. Before we get to that, let's talk about the Celtics and the Bucks. Game 7, insane, incredible. Giannis did everything that he could do, but defensively, I mean, just
that was a very sloppy fourth. That was a very, very sloppy fourth quarter for the Milwaukee Bucks. I was very surprised. I was disappointed. Giannis seemed to be getting shut down. Without Chris Middleton, who's been dealing with that injury to his knee, I think that really hurt them in a game 7 scenario, because we saw how Chris Middleton could be elite in those pressure moments when it comes to helping his team elevate to the next series. So I think it might have been a different conversation if we had everybody healthy on both sides of the ball. But at the same time, the Boston Celtics have definitely been earning those chips ever since coming back from that All-Star game where they had a very disappointing first half of the regular season, and they seemed like they've been on a consistent. You guys got to remember, when it comes to basketball, you got to talk about consistency. Because every once in a while, somebody can get off some good shots, and you guys can win some lucky games. But it comes down to that consistency, where we've seen that be the story of the Boston Celtics ever since the All-Star game. And I will say that Jason Tatum is the next Paul Pierce in Boston. You heard it first here on the Sports Senseis.
Wow. That is a bomb drop right there. That is a bomb.
Hot take. Only on the ASAP Network.
Listen, super hot take. But honestly, you're not wrong. I don't disagree. I definitely think that as far as leadership wise and what he's been able to bring to Boston and kind of how he's been able to grow with them and like elevate his game, elevate his the players around him. You're not wrong. Honestly, he's a more athletic Paul Pierce if we want to really put it into perspective, because but again, speaking of like Paul Pierce is another one. Like, his game was slow as hell, but it was effective. Like, it was effective. He was able to make it work. It was real sloppy, sluggish, but he was a killer though. So you were saying you had to account for it, but definitely, I would definitely agree with that, because like I said, I think JT is just a more athletic version of that, but for sure. But I feel like Boston was the better team going in anyway. Definitely with, like you said, the Bucks not having Chris Middleton, that definitely played a huge role, because Chris Middleton does a lot of things for that Milwaukee Bucks team that kind of goes unnoticed, and it became more of a glaring thing once things kind of started to unravel for them. And it's like, man, like you can see that they were missing. I can't hear you, sis.
People need to recognize that Chris Middleton was a big factor in them beating the Brooklyn Nets last series. But with James Harden being tarnished, yes, exactly.
He's a small KD. Like that's what I always compare him to. Like, he's just a short guard version of Kevin Durant, because everything that KD can do, he can do too. He's just not as long and not as tall as KD, but he can do the same things as KD. So they definitely missed him for sure, because that definitely relieved a lot of pressure on Giannis.
Yeah.
Giannis had to kick it out to Pat Connaughton a lot of the times, and like that's not really what Pat Connaughton. Not to say that Pat Connaughton is a bad player, because he's not, but that's not what he does. Like, he's not
he's a role player, absolutely.
He's a role player. He's a 3-and-D guy. Like, he's the epitome of a 3-and-D guy. Like, if he flourishes in that role, but the moment you elevate him to something beyond that, then you have those issues that they were having in the game in the game 7. So
I want to talk about Giannis and his style of play. There was a lot of offensive fouls that we saw from Giannis, who obviously loves to get to the paint, who loves to get to the rim, who will literally bulldozer anybody to get there. Now, there was a lot of times where Marcus Smart jumped in front of Giannis, planted his feet, and did not get the offensive foul call. Now, do you think the NBA is just trying to, I guess, warp into the style of play that we see from Giannis Antetokounmpo? Because at the end of the day, that's a 7-footer that's trying to get to the rim and will do whatever it takes to get there. Or do you really think maybe the NBA is just kind of trying to turn a blind eye to what they're seeing because they're tired of calling the whistle?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that the way that the league is going, it's starting to get back to a little bit more of a physical game, which I think that they're kind of slowly but surely trying to implement, because the complaints have been, the NBA soft and nobody plays hard and the ticky-tack fouls and everything's a foul. So now we kind of have gotten to the point where it's like, all right, we know, like, logically they can't call everything. And, there, like you said, there's a lot of times that Giannis literally bulldozes people. But are you going to stop? So it's kind of like they're kind of in a rock and a hard place. It's like, are you going to call those fouls and stop a potential 40 or 50 point performance? Or are you going to let him play and potentially where he can potentially have a great game? Because, like I said, we all know a lot of his points come inside the paint. We all know, like, he's not Like he has a consistent enough jump or getting a consistent enough jump shot where he can hit like the 10, 15 footer. He'll even take a three. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not, opposed to doing that. But we know a lot of his game is physicality. It's athleticism. I'm stronger than you. I'm taller than you. I'm faster than you. I'm going to show you how. That's a majority of his game. So if you call those fouls, you're kind of stripping Superman of his powers a little bit. And I don't think the NBA wants to do that, especially not in the playoffs. Like they're for sure they for sure weren't going to call that in the playoffs. On the regular season, he might not get away with that, but in the playoffs, they gonna let him rock.
Yeah, I think earlier in that series with the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks, there was a lot of foul calling. There was a lot of whistles being blown. There was a lot of the refs checking the monitor to check whether or not this challenge here or there. It was slowing down the game a little bit too much. So I think after Game 3, they kind of trying to turn the tides a little bit with how many calls that they were being called, because this is just a physical game. You're talking about two teams that has a Defensive Player of the Year and the leading NBA MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo, who thrives off of making it to the paint and scoring on his opponent. So I think a lot had to come to the NBA. Like they were at a rock and a hard place, like you described. They were like, do we slow down the game and risk a lot of NBA fans being frustrated and being annoyed by how the game has slowed down? Or do we let these men play at just a percentage of how they used to play in the early 80s when everybody was into the NBA the way that they was? So I think it's a tough choice. I did think Giannis did get away with a lot of offensive fouls. I think Marcus Smart and Williams, who did a great job defensively for the Boston Celtics, did their best to try to get Giannis in foul trouble early in the game. But at the end of the day, they won. The Celtics are moving on to the next series, so that's a conversation no here or there.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, the Bucks they're going to come back to form next year. Like they're going to get Chris Middleton back, obviously. So they're going to be right in the running for things next year, for years to come, really, as long as Giannis could stay healthy as well. They'll be right there in the conversation. But I mean, Boston is, man, how impressive has Boston been? I mean, to sweep KD and Kyrie and then to, take out Giannis in 7 games. Hey man, we gotta put some respect on their name. Like, I mean, especially like Jason Tatum, like he's been playing so well. Like he's literally taking it his game to the complete next level. Like, and I remember like, his first year how great he played, and then he kind of had a bit of a sophomore slump, and people were talking about him being trained by Kobe, how that was the worst thing that could have happened, and this, but now, I mean, he's making right of that, and I mean, and that's a lot for a young player to take. But so for him to take that on his broad shoulders, and pretty much, and for a historic franchise like the Boston Celtics, you got to give that man credit.
No, absolutely. I think him training with Joel Embiid in the off season has been great, because he's been learning how to play against a big man, to have a big defender on him, to having an MVP caliber player playing defense on him at all times has definitely improved his game, especially on that 1-on-1 ball. I mean, the things that we see Jason Tatum accomplish on the court is almost unbelievable, the way that he's playing. It's kind of like you almost expect these shots to not go in, and he just becomes such a soft shooter, especially from beyond the arc, that it's pretty miraculous to watch. So I'm loving the form that Jason Tatum is going into. I think the Miami Heat are definitely going to meet their match when it comes to having a great defensive opponent against with them. So let's depict this Miami Heat and Boston Celtics matchup.
Yes.
We have game 1 going on tonight.
What you think? What you got, Ruth? You gotta pick first this time. What you got?
I think it's gonna be a really tough series between these two teams. Like I mentioned before, they're both great defensive opponents against one another. I think Jimmy Butler is going to have a really hard time, a way harder time than he has at previous opponents in this series. I have the Boston Celtics winning, as much as I want to pick the Miami Heat, because I would love the NBA Finals to be just a 3-hour drive from where I live in Florida, because I do plan on going to an NBA Finals game this year. I'm making it happen. God willing, I'm making it happen. So it would be great to be a 3-hour drive from the NBA Finals. But I think the Boston Celtics really has a chance to make something happen. Udoka, the head coach for the Boston Celtics, all the talk that's been around his ability to coach the game has definitely been washed out with this playoff series.
Absolutely.
It's been outstanding.
Absolutely.
With Jaylen Brown still playing hurt and still being able to come to his form, with both Williams, Robert Williams facing injury early on this series, he was not able to participate. If he's able to come back and be a defensive monster with Bam Adebayo against the Miami Heat, I think that's going to be something to watch. The Boston Celtics were able to shut down a defensive monster like the Milwaukee Bucks, who were so big with Giannis Antetokounmpo, with Brooke Williams, with the height that they had. They definitely showed that they could play above adversity. So I'm really excited to see this Boston Celtics Miami Heat matchup. I have the Celtics winning tonight just because they're coming off such a hot hand just 2 days ago, sweeping away the Milwaukee Bucks, who were the NBA champions of last year. I think they're still going to be riding off the high, and they're going to take game one.
I got Boston as well in this series. I do think that Boston will go ahead and pull this off. I think Boston wins tonight. I would say Boston wins tonight.
In Miami? You think it's happening in Miami?
Ooh, that's a good question because I thought they were. That's a good question, actually. No, you know what? I think Miami will probably win tonight because it is in Miami. So I'll give Miami game one, but I think once Boston kind of settles in and sees how they're going to play them, I think Boston will end up winning the series.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see this. Honestly, I can see this going 7-2 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Did I pick the right team, Coach? Did I pick the right team? I don't know who else.
Victor, please give us what you think about game one.
It looks like I picked the wrong team.
We appreciate all the comments here on the Sports Senseis every Tuesday night. This is Sensei and Ruth the Truth here, holding it down on a Tuesday night. We appreciate you guys here. It's going to be a really exciting game one between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics, who are coming off a really impressive performance, shutting down the Milwaukee Bucks, who won the NBA championship of last season. They were shut out by, 20 points? I want to be accurate on this. They did score. They definitely won in double digits. It was a devastating blow to the Milwaukee Bucks. In Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken, they were in TD Garden, all right? They were in TD Garden. 81 though, 81 to 109. I mean, that's a pretty serious deficit to be losing in 28 points. 28 points in a game 7. That's a really unimpressive performance by the Milwaukee Bucks. But I have the I have the Boston Celtics getting a sneaky link win in game one in Miami. And as Jason Tatum's son said to the press, he's ready to swim in Miami.
Yeah, he just want to go through. I respect it. He's just like, all this stuff is cool. Take me to the pool though. I just want to jump in the pool. Like, this is cool, Dad. Like, good job. Congrats to you. But I would like to go swimming. Like, love that for Deuce Tatum. Love that for Deuce.
Yeah, absolutely. Either way, we have some great teams matching up in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. The NBA championship is going to be slowly approaching us. Everybody, it's coming fast, so stay locked into the ASAP network. We'll be covering the NBA as well as the WNBA. Sensei, take some time to let the audience know about your new explosive WNBA show that is, I believe, every Wednesday night.
Yes, every Wednesday night, Beyond the Rim, myself, Megan Price, Mike Hughes, shout out my brother Mike Hughes, Chiracian, just like me, you feel me? But yeah, so we're every Wednesday at 5. So it's 5 Pacific Standard Time, 7 Central Standard Time, and we live that 8 Eastern Standard Time. So we talk all things WNBA. We get into all the topics. We get into all the teams and the games. The drama, the on the court stuff, the off the court stuff. We talk about, of course, the situation with Brittany Griner, which is a mess. But we hope that she gets home soon. But yes, make sure y'all tune into Beyond the Rim. It's been really successful. We've definitely been appreciating the feedback and the love that we've been getting for the comments and the fans and things of that nature. So yeah, definitely make sure y'all check that out. And we'll be We'll be on tomorrow, giving you more of the WNBA news. You definitely don't want to miss this episode because we're gonna really get into some stuff. Especially, we're gonna really cover the Brittany Griner situation, like depth, like thorough, to have like a real conversation about it. So if you don't want to hear a biased opinion and a bunch of BS, come listen to Beyond the Rim.
You guys heard it here first on the Sports Senseis. Make sure to stay tied in to Beyond the Rim every Wednesday night with Megan Price and Mike Hughes and our star, the Sensei. Well, do you have any final thoughts before we say goodbye to our audience? Because I'm definitely late to the dinner reservation, but I don't even care because I had a great time.
Me too, and I'm glad that you stayed. We appreciate the sacrifices that Ruth the Truth makes. My final thought is that I wish that I was where she's at right now because it looks so tropical and fun, and I'm just like, it's just, can y'all see that? Like, she just is living the life. Like, I think we should all want to inspire to be like Ruth the Truth. That's my final thought. Everybody should be like Ruth the Truth. And just live life.
when you stay a positive person, when you pray to God, when you hold your family close and you do right by others, positivity will continue to come in your life. And I could just say thank you, God, to my family for always being supportive of my dreams and everything that I want to accomplish. And that's how I'm here today. And I mean, it is what it is, dog. It is what it is.
Hey, we love to hear it. Well, thank y'all again for joining us for another episode of the Sports Senseis. I am Sensei, your girl Ruth the Truth. We out to stay, and we will see y'all next week.
Boston Celtics in Game 1. I see it coming. But have a great night, guys. We will see you next Tuesday. Make sure to stay tuned to Beyond the Rim tomorrow night. Bye.
Indeed. Bye. Check us out.